people that are admired in the financial world, Jamie Dimon, Warren Buffett, are they just wrong?
A lot of them have definitely been just wrong already, right? They expected even back in 2013 to 15, at least some of them, to see blockchains and cryptocurrency fail and go down to zero in price and just not get any more interest completely. And even today, they've already been far more successful than any of them expected.
You're planning major upgrades, meantime, and ETH 2.0 is well underway. What will that accomplish? What problems will it solve?
So I think what people call ETH 2.0 has two big parts, right? One big part is the switch to proof of stake. So after a full transition to proof of stake, there will not be any more mining. Ethereum's energy consumption will go down by like a factor of more than 1,000. So it'll go from being a big problem to basically not a problem at all. And the chain will become more secure, it'll become more efficient. So after that, the next major milestone is what's called the merge, which is when basically the proof of work chain just stops running and all of the applications on the proof of work chain get moved over to the proof of stake chain and continue running inside of the proof of stake chain from there.
Now, while you're working on all of this, Ethereum has developed an unseemly reputation as a fertile ground for scams. And I wonder how concerned you are about a crackdown like we saw with ICOs. What are the longer term consequences?
There's definitely going to be crackdowns on things happening on blockchains, just like there's crackdowns on things happening on the internet. I do think that the state of the industry and the state of things is improving. But if you just compare it to the way that the space was like 5 or 8 years ago, right? Like 2014, remember, Mt. Gox just like collapsed and $500 million disappeared. Like, and I think we still don't know where most of it is. And like things do continue to happen from time to time, but just like as a fraction of the scale of the space, I do think that it keeps getting smaller and smaller. One big consequence, of course, is that mining is moving out of China, which, I mean, there's definitely a silver lining there in terms of decentralization in that you don't have as much hash power located in one country anymore. But at the same time, the mining farms there were, real companies with real employees and real people. Some degree of regulatory action is happening, but it's not looking like, anything close to, the level of like, say, what people feared 10 years ago.
There's concerns about Russia being behind a spate of cyber attacks and cryptocurrency being used as a tool of extortion. How do you think about the intersection of crypto and cyber warfare?
To me, I think that this is a temporary phase. I think what's happened is that just like even like the internet as a whole, it grew a huge amount over the last 20 years. And for most of that 20 years, people just did not take security seriously. It's even the wrong thing to be doing, to be trying to blame attackers. Ultimately, the things that's at fault is the fact that there are these excellent tools within cryptography and like within, the technology behind cryptocurrency itself that allow you to be much more secure against these kinds of things. And I mean, my personal hope is that people like at least see like the level of attacks that are happening now as a wake-up call, and that we get a massive effort to just improve the level of security just across every industry and across the world. Because if that doesn't happen, right, like then it's not it's not even ransomware attackers or that are going to be a problem. Like it's at some point whenever the first like full-scale cyber war happens, if people are not prepared, it's something that could end up being something really bad for the world.
Right now, it is mostly finance apps that are built on Ethereum, aside from NFTs. And I'm wondering, what is the killer app for Ethereum that could lead to widespread adoption, much like email was for the internet?
I think there's a few candidates. So I mean, DeFi is obviously one of them. I think the blockchain-based financial things have always been attractive because the traditional financial system just sucks more than traditional centralized tech, right? Like if I send an email to, someone in Guatemala, then they're going to receive it in 1 second. With finance, you can't even say that. A lot of people and companies, even today, just to use cryptocurrency to send money internationally. Outside of finance, I think one interesting area where I think blockchains might go. You notice that in order to access your assets in Ethereum, you need to have an account. We're getting to the point where there's a lot of work that's been done on making these accounts very secure. And so instead of just being accounts that hold money, like these turn into like fully blown profiles, right? And once you have profiles, then you can start doing decentralized social media on top of that. The social and financial things that you can do with that, like even working together, is something that I think could be really big.
Now, whether Bitcoin, Ethereum, or the blockchain really are changing the world seems to be an ongoing debate. Is crypto the future, or is it a fad?
I think it's the future that contains fads, much like the internet was the future and the internet contained fads. There's definitely specific kinds of applications that do get overhyped from time to time, like ICOs back in 2017, and then there's certain kinds of DeFi right now, but at the same time, there's other DeFi projects that really are valuable. There's a combination of both, right? And figuring out which is maybe it's something that's difficult to see ahead of time, and it's something that we as an ecosystem are going to find out.
So the crypto skeptics, many people that are admired in the financial world, Jamie Dimon, Warren Buffett, are they just wrong?
A lot of them have definitely been just wrong already, right? They expected even back in 2013 to 15, at least some of them, to see blockchains and cryptocurrency fail and go down to zero in price and just not get any more interest completely. And even today, they've already been far more successful than any of them expected. So I can see how people in traditional finance, or at least some of them, can be inclined to kind of not see the value of blockchain-based finance immediately. There's a lot of people, even in traditional banks, that see the value that blockchains provide and have been trying to come up with things and work with them.
One of them is Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey recently announced Square is creating a new business focused on decentralized financial services based on Bitcoin, using Bitcoin. What have you learned about Jack Dorsey's plans? Does it seem like he's building something that sounds a lot like Ethereum?
I'm skeptical about these decentralized finance on top of Bitcoin type of projects. Basically because the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? This is that on Ethereum, there's native functionality that allows you to essentially directly put either ETH or Ethereum based assets into these smart contracts, into these lockboxes, where there's then arbitrary conditions of any kind that can then govern how those assets get released. Bitcoin does not have that functionality to the same extent. Jack is basically going to have to essentially create his own system that enforces those rules, and then on the Bitcoin layer, the Bitcoins will just have to be owned by probably a multi-sig wallet controlled by either Jack or the participants in the system. It looks similar, but it'll end up being something with a much weaker trust model. Right, I really think that this is the whole reason why Ethereum started as an independent system in the first place, right? There's technical limits to your ability to kind of graft new functionality onto a system that's not powerful enough to support that new functionality.
Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg is also making some big moves behind the metaverse, and what do you make of them wading into this decentralized world? Could they replicate some of the same problems that we see in Facebook and Twitter today?
I think Mark is clearly trying to figure out what the next stage after the internet is and actually get into it and create it. But before the rest of the world goes in some different direction, and Facebook is sort of left in the dust and becomes one of these kind of previous generation old world companies. So we've seen Facebook try to get into the crypto space with Libra, though. I think in the end, like Libra did end up being possibly the wrong approach, because like the problem that someone like Facebook has, right, is that a lot of people mistrust them. And so building their own platform, like I know they tried really hard to create something that's a consortium with all these different industry participants, but at the same, like even that was not enough, right? And there's just a huge amount of mistrust of them.